Today, what I'd like to do is kind of clear up something. Maybe there's a very common kind of misconception. Um, you know, the way people use words and terms changes over time, and often if you say that you had an argument, it means that you had like a verbal exchange with another person or a group of people or another or whatever that um, might involve like raised voices, hurt feelings, or whatever. That's what people associate, or that's the kind of connotation people have in terms of a argument. However, that's not really the best use of the term. Actually, an argument is a statement assumed to be true. So, for instance, an argument would be that the universe has a beginning. So, that's an argument, and then it'll have certain like premises that build into it that can then be discussed to determine if that argument is or is not true. And the reason this is important is that when, like, for instance, I'll say, like, I like to argue, it means that I like to form arguments. It's not that I have a penchant for emotionally scarring other people or for getting into emotionally charged discussions. Like, it's not that. It's that I like discussing ideas and truth statements and faith claims, and like that's what I enjoy. That's the thing that I value, and I think that it goes all the way back to ancient Greece with the Socratic method of how do we discover, how do we know anything about what we know, with how do we discover the truth, how do we journey through asking the right questions, how do we even know if we've asked the right question? Because if you don't start from a good question, you will never arrive at a good answer, and just all of those things. And this is something that's important to me because I think we've gotten into kind of a like an internet search society where we just kind of take people's words for it because Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye, Beekman, hashtag OG, or Stephen Hawking, because they said this, that, or another thing, we just assume that it's true because that person said it. We may do that with, let's say, our pastors or our school teachers or our parents or things. And I think in a lot of instances that kids will grow up in the church believing that that's an okay thing to do, that it's okay to just kind of take your pastors, your parents, your Sunday school teachers' word for something, and then they go off to college and suddenly they're out of the fishbowl and they are exposed to atheist ideas, agnostic ideas that have competitive truth claims, and they don't understand how to challenge them because they've kind of been indoctrinated in a way that if a person who's an authority over you, a professor, a teacher, a school administrator, tells you something, that you're supposed to just accept it as fact. I think this is damaging to people because it puts them in a period of crisis. So they may come home in the holidays season and they'll parrot back to you what you taught them as a kid because now they're underneath your sphere of influence again, and their natural proclivity is to just align underneath that authority. But maybe they don't believe that anymore. Maybe they don't know how to articulate that they don't believe it. Maybe they don't even understand how to articulate the process that they're going through, the kind of crisis they're going through. Um, I think it is vastly superior for everyone in general to learn how um, what a good idea is, what a bad idea is, what is logic, what's the difference between empirical induction and logical deduction. Like, those things are fundamental, because if you look at a deductive argument and the premises don't match up, then the conclusion must be wrong. And so you go back to the drawing board and you reword it. Maybe it's the language that you use. Maybe it's just the words themselves that are not conveying the idea in a reasonable manner. Or maybe it's that the conclusion just simply doesn't add up to the premises that you've set up for it. So it needs to be something that, like, you don't just create an argument and then that's it. You might have a specific argument for why the universe has a beginning, or for what the first or the fact that maybe that the universe has a cause. And like, I've used those two arguments, for instance, just in the past week or so, probably 4 or 5 times. I don't think I've typed it out precisely the same word for word any one of those times, because the context of what we were actually discussing changed what the argument was trying to accomplish. And so including or removing details that are not necessary, or whatever, like, things change. And so you're going to go back and then you're going to reassess your argument, reword it, change language, build it, like, just all of that. So this is important. Whether you're an atheist, agnostic, theist, deist, you need to understand what an argument is, because you don't get into arguments. You use arguments in discourse. So, I don't know why that's so important to me necessarily, but it is something I feel that is very, very important for our society to relearn how to disagree in agreeable manners. So, I don't know. I'm probably the only person that cares about this stuff.